Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Homeschool Live with the Old Schoolhouse. My name is Christine, and joining me today is Pat Murray from CTC Math. Thanks for coming again and chatting with us, Pat.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy jumping on your channel. It's great fun.
Yeah, and we have some wonderful conversations. And today we're going to talk about this thing called math anxiety. And this is something that uh, many parents actually deal with, especially when our kids get older and the math starts to get harder. And so, and I know for myself, it was very easy to think I can teach math when it was just adding and subtracting, even the multiplications, and then the long division starts to come, and okay, it's getting a little bit hard, and now we're at the point where we're doing algebra and all of that stuff. And so it's getting a little overwhelming. And I mean, I'm reminding myself to stay calm and there's help out there. But and before I get you to answer the question that I had for you, just tell everyone who isn't familiar with who you are a little bit about your background, because you're going to offer some math expertise here as we go through these questions. But first, tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christine. Well, I love, as I said, I love being here. And firstly, I'd like to congratulate everybody who's on the call or will listen to this at some stage, and congratulate you on the wonderful decision you've made to homeschool your children. I mean, it's a difficult call, particularly in these times. So, firstly, my congratulations to you with that. My background, I'm the founder of CTC Math. We've been around in some form or another in the digital space for more than 2 decades now. So we've been around for a long time. I guess we were real pioneers of math education online. So based in Sydney, Australia, early on in the 2000s, we kicked off our program. I'd been teaching up to that point in regular schools for about 12, 15 years. And then found I'd like to reach some more people if I could, and develop some particularly video lessons, nice succinct video lessons that people could easily understand, and kids responded very well. So we've grown over that many years. We're in many countries. Actually, my daughter, who works with me, she said, "Dad, do you realize that our program has been sold into 107 countries?" I thought, well, no,
That's amazing.
I didn't know there was 107 countries. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting thing. So, but we particularly enjoyed working with homeschoolers. So, and we found that because, particularly once you get to that high school, as you mentioned, Christine, sometimes the math starts getting a little bit difficult, which is unsurprising. I mean, it's it's unless you're sort of developing and working in that side of level of math every day, it's hard, to jump back in and remember, how did I do it when I was younger? All of those sort of things. So that's it is a difficult one. So anyway, we're quite privileged to be able to reach so many people and be able to do this, do what we really love for a living. So we're quite thankful for that.
Awesome. So coming back to this whole math anxiety thing, what is or what are some ways that can help parents who struggle with kids to let me rephrase that question. How can parents help children who struggle with math anxiety?
Well, firstly, recognize that math anxiety is a real thing. Now,
Yeah,
I wasn't even aware of it. Oh, well, I've been aware for a long time now, but in the early times, when I heard this math anxiety or dyscalculia, I thought, is that a real thing? And then I did more and more research and spoke to more and more parents and kids. And yeah, it is a real issue. So it's important, firstly, to recognize that. And I always emphasize the 3 P words. So patience, persistence, and a positive attitude. So I always think that's a good thing to remember, 3 Ps. So look, start by giving kids something they can achieve. So even if you need to go back a bit into the curriculum and reward them for their successes, because what you might find, and as a parent, teaching your child, if you've got math anxiety yourself, and and math anxiety, comes in many ways. But essentially, if you're not confident with teaching math and you're worried about it, so I suppose that's the easiest way to sort of think about. Oh, yeah, I'm a bit anxious about it. What you never want to do, I'll tell you one thing you never want to do is to tell your kids to say, oh, well, I was never any good at math, so it makes sense that you're not so good at math. So never fall, but that's a trap that a lot of people fall into. I know
it
that.
is, yeah.
So that's one thing to avoid. And I guess one of the things I always think of is when you're learning something and your child hasn't got it yet, use the word yet. So you say, okay, we haven't got it, but you just haven't got it yet. And that means that, okay, there's still an opportunity, and there will be many opportunities to get it. So in any part of life, if you think about it, at one stage, what you know now, you didn't know before, right? So, but it's just about saying, well, I just didn't know it yet. So that's an excellent word, the word yet. Now, again, I talked about, so reward them for their successes, no matter how small, because that building that confidence is very crucial. And one great way to boost confidence is mastering math tables. So mastering your times tables and basic math facts, because you generally will do that when they're younger. And if you can master those, or get the kids to master those facts as a building block, that will help them, further down the track. So when kids can recall these quickly, gives them a sense of achievement. So that's a great thing. Also, some fun sort of activities. I always like number filling puzzles. That's always good. That can help reduce anxiety as well, because when the kids fill in these sort of puzzles, and it's just mathematical stuff, they really get, okay, they finally getting, okay, I can do it. You might have to help them a little bit, not a problem. But that sort of thing is really good for that math anxiety. So there's a few points, but the 3 P's: patience, persistence, and positive attitude.
I love it. And we kind of touched on it a little bit about parents themselves who might have math anxiety. What can you say to them specifically about just teaching, even though they feel that they're not good at math themselves?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important that they can go back and have a look themselves at something. And I think I've always found the best way to learn that is through a nice, concise video instructions of lessons. And I know it's one thing that that parents tell us all the time. They always say, oh, gee, I wish we had this, as in our program, CTC Math, when I was a kid. It would have been made life so much easier. And it is really. And I think, the way we've designed the program is very deliberate, but with those snack bite-sized videos, if you like, which really explain something well, and they're short enough that if you didn't get it the first time around, go back, watch it again. Right. But I think something like that, if a parent can go back, find something that they didn't know very well, and find an explanation that makes sense to them. Okay.
Yes.
I'm talking about our videos, but there's plenty of resources around that could help them. But I think if they have a more confident feeling themselves by watching something, and they could be super surprised that they watch something that they haven't seen since they were at school, and they might not have even understood it when they were at school. Yes, and all of a sudden it's been explained to them in a different way, a more concise way, a better way, and they think, wow, it's actually not that hard. So we've had parents tell us that all the time. So I think that's one critical way I would sort of tackle math anxiety.
And I think that's a good point too, because our kids learn differently, like even between brothers and sisters, and not everyone learns the same way. And so if you teach a certain way of how to do algebra, for example, to one kid, the other one will come along and, what are you talking about? This makes no sense whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And so I remember when I was doing, I love algebra. I love doing it. But I remember being in high school and working on it, and everybody around me was just not getting what the teacher was saying. Meanwhile, I'm just like, oh, la, 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 just filling it in. And then I ended up explaining how I understood it. And then my classmates were like, oh, okay, now when you say it like that, it makes sense. So it's important to know that even though not just for your kids, but for yourself. If you need to learn, um, look at different ways, look at different the videos as you suggested, or different textbooks if you have access to them, who offer different ways of explaining how to do the math problem. And
Yeah,
so
well,
you might be surprised. Yeah,
yeah,
because
I like that point you're making, Christine, because it is interesting. I mean, I just sort of go back to my early days when I was becoming a math teacher and at college, at university, and I would ask the lecturer. I said, "Look, I'm looking at a textbook here. It's got three different methods of how to solve the one problem,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I'd say, which one do you choose?" And I got some advice, and I got to say it was very poor advice, because the advice was, say, "Oh, just pick with any method. They're all the same. They're all pretty much
oh,
the same." And they said, just go with one. But what I found, when I was early teaching, I did a lot of tutoring one-on-one as well,
okay.
is that the method I showed, depending on the words I use or the phrases I use, made all the difference in the world. So I
Mm,
would find that I would show a student one way of doing things, and it was good being one-on-one so many times. I could see their reaction to
yeah.
to what I was showing them. I could see, well, they're not really getting it. I'd ask them, "Are you getting it?" And they, "Oh yeah," and I think, "No, they're not really." But I said, let's look at it this way. Let's look at a different way. And I show them a different way, and bang, straight away, they, wow, yeah, I get that now. And I guess that was a great thing for me over many years, because I found out the best way of teaching things that appealed to most kids, right? So, and it was and when I look back at it now and I look at the different methods, I can just see straight away, oh, that's a crazy method to show. Why is that even still being published in textbooks? So it's an interesting one, that there are still some very poor methods that are being published and taught, it's only through a lot of many years experience knowing how to best teach kids. I mean, one of the things that might be that is very interesting and concerning, in terms of a bit of math anxiety, is just to let parents know as well that you're not alone. Because I tell you a statistic that is quite worrying, that 38% of primary school teachers struggle with math, right? So 38% and it's difficult for them, because they, in the systemic school system, of course, they've got to teach everything, and they're paid to teach everything. But if 38% of them are not so good at math, so it's a bit of a struggle. And if I know a lot of parents here that their kids might have started in a regular school as well, in systemic schooling, and just be aware that there may be quite a number of gaps in their knowledge. So, but it's never terminal. So I think always go back.
Exactly.
Yeah. But just to realise that is, that is a reality, that a lot of kids will struggle at math from an early age, because the instruction isn't really good. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I was thinking of that I do, I actually, when I see ahead, like when I look ahead and I see, the topic that they're going to be covering, and my brain goes, oh yikes, what does that mean again? How do you do that? Like, even if if it's science or math or whatever the topic is, it's oh dear. Okay, so then I kind of say, okay, well, let's do this together, because I
Very good.
know they're probably going to have struggle with this, but then I'm sitting there refreshing my brain. I don't have to say I have no clue what this is about. I don't say that right away, but at least I can sit with them, and if they're asking questions, I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Let's go see if we get, and then we do it together, and that way at the end of it, I'm a little bit more confident in what I can do to help them, and then I may admit halfway along that, oh, I didn't know this about this part of the history, or I didn't know this part about how this works in science, or so. And then they actually appreciate that, because they don't feel so intimidated, because the adults seem to know everything, and we don't, right?
Yeah,
And it's okay to admit that
yeah,
to your kids, especially.
that's great. I was gonna make that point too. That you can be very open with them and say that, okay, it's I might be struggling a little bit with this, but let's work it out together. And that was I'm glad you mentioned that, Christine, because that's an important thing. That's your kids see that, well, you don't know everything. I mean, but
Exactly.
you're trying. You're trying. If there's gaps
Right.
in your own knowledge, you're actually trying to find out. And if they can actually see you find,
The
how do you
answer.
plug the
Yeah.
gap? It's sort of learning by osmosis a little bit too. They sort of say, okay, mum or dad is working this out. They don't know everything, but there's an opportunity to find out, the answers or how to do things. So that's fantastic. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's an important point for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, we are big fans of CTC Math, and one of the things that I enjoyed about using that program was the level of mastery that you can achieve for all. And I think you touched on it a little bit ago, and this kind of encourages that growth mindset. And so, how can overall parents help their children develop this growth mindset towards math? Because usually there's that mindset that, okay, you just need to check the boxes, you just need to know, like, addition, subtraction,
Mm.
multiplication, and division, and then, it just the other stuff is you don't need to know, or they kind of just belittle the rest of it. But yeah, I think that kind of goes alongside the math anxiety, where, I mean, if we had a positive growth mindset, then that kind of lowers that math anxiety. So
Yeah.
what would you advise?
What would I say about? Well, look, it's developing a growth mindset. It's just pretty crucial in math. So I always think advise to always praise effort over natural ability. So instead of saying, "Oh, you're so smart," say, "I'm proud of how hard you worked," right? Because you can
Yeah.
always praise effort. You can't always
Yes.
praise the
Yeah.
result that your child might get, because the result might not be what you wanted. But in saying that, even if the kids get something wrong, and they will, of course they will, encourage kids to embrace those challenges and learn from mistakes. I mean, one of the great, one of the people, sorry, one of the great people in history who admits they made many more failures than probably anyone in the world is Thomas Edison, right? Because
That's true.
all the experiments he did to actually get that light bulb. So he didn't see them as mistakes. He just said, "Oh, well, I'm just one step closer," or finding, "Oh, I just found one step that didn't work." One experiment didn't work. So it's an interesting mindset like that. So I think and math does give you an opportunity, because you get lots and lots of practice of lots of questions. So that if you make a mistake, or the kids make a mistake, you got to tell them, well, you're going to make mistakes. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but that's okay. And if they know that that's okay, and they're not worried about that, that's important. So to share stories, famous mathematicians, scientists who failed before succeeding, that's always a good. I mean, you can do a good Google search, you could find 10 or 20 fantastic examples, and I always think they're good to bring up and show your kids that these people, world famous, but how many mistakes. I mean, in basketball, I think Michael Jordan has the most failures at throwing 3-pointers, from attempts of 3 points. But he's also got the most 3-pointers. So those sort of things that, you'll know what resonate with your kids about who they can think about. So that's an important one. And like I said a bit earlier, when you're solving a problem and haven't quite got it, well, you haven't quite got it yet. So I'm a big fan of that word "yet." If you haven't picked that
I
up.
like it. Yeah. I love it.
And just remember that every math problem solved is actually building new connections in the brain. So all about the attitude that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work, and failure and success. So all of these things blending together. And of course, look, you've got to admit, sometimes it can be very frustrating as well. So I'm not going to gloss over that. Oh, it's frustrating.
Sure.
Haven't quite got this. Haven't got it. But again, persistence there. And I've seen it, and many parents have told me many times over the years, is that their child was struggling, and all of a sudden, bang, they were able to cover. And I think I've mentioned this before, Kristen, another time, but that if you feel that they're a little bit behind on things, don't be surprised if they cover 2 years of work in 1 year. in 12
Yeah.
months. If they can just, sometimes things click, and bang, they just go so well. And all those worries you were, oh, my child's behind, bang, they're all disappeared because they've caught up or they've gone ahead. And I've just seen that so many times. It's just not unusual when I hear that now. So, I mean, it's very pleasing when I hear it, but it's not surprising. So if you find you're ever in that position, look, don't panic.
And that's the good thing about for us homeschoolers, that we don't have to check those boxes. There's no left behind kind of mentality, or there shouldn't be, because your child works at their own pace. That's the whole premise for homeschooling, that we allow them to work at their own pace. And so, you got to forget that whole, oh, they're only doing grade 2 level and they're supposed to be doing grade 4 stuff. That's okay. And yeah, as Pat mentioned, they'll take their time for this period, but then after all, once they get it and it clicks, and they'll be off flying, and you'll be like, oh wait, how come they're doing high school math already? Like, how did that happen? So don't be discouraged if you're out there and you're struggling a little bit with your kiddos. Just keep at it, keep persistent, as Pat mentioned, and stay the course. We didn't want to forget parents that have children with learning difficulties or differences, because that is a real thing. And you might be, watching and thinking, okay, these points are great, but my kid learns differently. So what kind of advice would you, or strategies that you can suggest, Pat, for these parents?
Yeah. Okay. So with learning differences, that requires sort of patience again and flexibility. So the first thing you want to do is identify their learning style. So visual, auditory, kinesthetic. All right. And generally, your kids will be a bit dominant in one or two of those out of those three. But that's an important thing. And so adapt your teaching accordingly. So there's various tests and so on how to recognize, of identifying those learning styles. So I won't get into all those tests. I mean, there's experts much way better than me at telling you how to do that. But I mean, that's an important one. I know that, using manipulatives and concrete examples before moving to abstract concepts, certainly in math, is an important thing. And you generally do that anyway as you're younger, as they get a bit older as well. Now, repetition in math is key, but you want to also vary the approach a bit just to keep it engaging. I think that, at CTC Math, with our video examples, with our video lessons, we straight away video lessons and go straight into questions based on what they've just seen. And that's I'd say that's a repetitive thing. That's what we do a lot. But then there's other things that we encourage you to do in terms of, problem solving things, and there's just so many activities and even free activities, online, different resources that you can use. I mean, I'm a big fan of math games. So some pretty cool. Well, there's actually a website called, if it's still around, Cool Math Games, which I quite enjoy. And there's some good things as a reward. So we've, our program, we've deliberately haven't, got into a whole lot of the gamification, which the ordinary sort of program might do. But because the concern with me on that approach is that the kids always have to be entertained to learn something, which is not what you want. You don't want that. You don't want kids to say, well, this is boring, to always have to be entertained, because that doesn't very,
sometimes learning is just learning. There's a time and a place for all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So I think, so with the learning differences, and you mentioned before, so don't rush. You don't rush, ensure that you got mastery of each step before moving on. And it's not a rush. It's not how to get to the finishing line. I mean, I heard it described really well by Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach, and he talked about the horizon and measuring yourself, measuring where your kids are by looking, looking where they need to get, what the goal. But if you think about the horizon, you actually never get to the horizon. It's always there. You're making progress in there. But if you're always saying, oh, I haven't quite got there, and you're just measuring against the horizon, you actually get disappointed. So a great way of measuring is to measure backwards. Go back, measure your progress and made, or the progress. And that's an interesting mindset. And I mean, that's just not for kids to learn. That's for adults to learn everything. When I first heard that, I thought, wow, that was a really good. Yeah, it just So
see where you come from. That's
where
it.
you
That's
come from.
yeah.
Yeah. So he refers to it as called the gap and the gain. So if you're living in the gap, you're in the gap between where you are and that horizon, that ideal, because you never get there. You actually never get there. Horizon keeps moving, right? But if you measure the gain, then actually you get a lot of fulfillment. Okay, we made this progress. So that's that's a mindset. It's an important one that you can always if the kids are struggling, and say you can measure back. Look how far we've come. Didn't know how to do this. Now we know it. You didn't know how to do this. Now we know that as well. So that gives them that encouragement there. But what I think, don't rush. Patience, persistence, perseverance. And always to remember too that your kids have unique strengths, so that's important as well. I mean, they might never be great at math. That's okay. That's okay. Everyone will have unique strengths, and and they come out over time. But as a mum or dad, you often identify your kids' unique strengths very early on. So if you can nurture them, that's advice that will never go astray. That nurturing of their unique strengths. So I hope that covers a few things there for you, Christine.
Yeah, no, I'm learning stuff. This is fabulous, and it's always a joy to talk to you and learn more. Just from a parenting point of view, and you sharing your stories as a math expert with us, and so I know you touched on a bit of what CTC Math is. Can you give just a short run through of what parents can expect if they're looking for a program like CTC Math?
Yeah, so it's, the curriculum that we've designed, particularly for homeschooling, allows mum and dad to find out where their kids are at. And like I said earlier on, it's important to identify, if they're a little bit behind and plug in those gaps. So we've got diagnostic tests that help you do that. But it's it's a simple design, and we've made it as simple as possible, where essentially the curriculum is made up of short video lessons that are very concise. If you don't get it the first time, that's okay. Just go back, rewind, and they're short enough to watch it again. And then once they've watched the lessons, then they hop straight into some questions, based on what they've just seen. And those questions are adaptive, and they'll start off a bit easier, and then as the kids progress, get them some right, the difficulty level increases a little bit. So that's the simple idea of the design. And then everything is automatically marked and recorded. The reports, the guys, the back team who have created these reports, superb. I mean, they're brilliant, our guys, and parents love them. So you can see, where they're at, what they need to improve on, and all the recording and that, which is important. And I know it's sometimes a bit of a pain recording everything, but it's all done for you. So that I know a lot of parents like that. And one of the great things that we've built recently too is what we call the course planner. So particularly used when you're at the start of a year, when it's probably best at the start of the year, but it can be wherever you sort of come into the school year, and whether if you're in grade 3 or grade 4 or the older grades, we go right up to the high school. That the course planner is just a few clicks away, and you've got the whole course ready for your child. And when they log in, they'll get the lesson for the day and work their way through it, and next time they log in, lesson for the next day. And so you know that by the end of the school year, you've covered the whole course. So that's a great tool.
That's a really good tool.
The parents like. So, but the big thing is, I mean, we stand by our program. We're confident that it suits most parents. But if it doesn't, try it out. Really try it out. It's very economical. But even if you don't like it, it hasn't worked for you, we give 100% money back guarantee. So that's for 12 months. So that's I think
That's
we're the only
very
company
good.
in the world that does that, actually,
Yeah.
in all our research, and we've done that for 20 years. So it's nothing new for us. So we're happy to provide that guarantee as well.
And like we said before, we're big CTC Math fans over here, and we love what you do. And so we're so thankful that you're continuing to build upon it and make it better every year. And so if you're out there looking for a math program for your kiddos, definitely check out CTC Math. We'll put the link in the comments and on the screen here, ctcmath.com. So feel free to jump in. And I know you have a special price for homeschoolers. So definitely check that out and take advantage of that. And we're going to have Pat back because he's so awesome. If you have math questions, specific math questions, I'm going to invite you to just pop them in the comments and let us know what you need help with, what you've got questions. We will find the answers for you and would love to chat more about it. And yeah, I'm thinking we're going to talk about some specific math stuff when we come back with Pat. So stay tuned for that coming up in a little while. And yeah, just thanks again, Pat, for chatting with us today and for all your wisdom. I know, again, I said this before, but I'm learning so much from you, so I appreciate you and your time.
Thanks, Kristen. I love being here, and it'll be great. Yeah, if anyone wants to send through some questions and that, we can dive into that next time. No, that'd be great. I love being here too. Thanks, Kristen. I really enjoyed it.
Perfect. So we will sign off for now and we'll say bye and we'll see you again for another Homeschool Live.